All right, how do I advance? Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. Yeah, boy, a lot has happened in a year, huh? So for those of you who heard my talk last year, there has been an enormous leap and bound and multiple in the past 12 months. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. One of those things actually is just the whole industry has a new name, which is in my title, AI Rollup. So who here has heard that term before? Okay, not that many of you. So it is a term of art that, frankly, I don't really like, but it is something that journalists called out, I think maybe 6 months ago, and it refers to the largely VC inspired methodology of buying Main Street style businesses and growing them using artificial intelligence and data science and machine learning. So you'll see a few examples. General Catalyst is probably, if you Google AI Rollup right now, you'll probably see the most articles about GC. There's Andreessen, there's Lightspeed, there's Thrive, there's a dozen others. There's also my firm, Pilot Wave Holdings. And the major differentiation between us and all of them is we founded the firm 7 years ago and they founded it 12 months ago. So we have a few lessons learned. We have a few scars in our face. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we approach it, what we've done well, what we've learned, what we haven't done so well, how we've won and how we've struggled. So the main thing that differentiates our approach from these guys is the topic of my talk, which is we really lean forward into two main things that these folks maybe don't think as much about. One is what I like to call operator empathy. This is really why I think most of these efforts don't work. A lot of folks who shove technology in maybe antiquated industries, maybe companies that haven't used it before, don't take the effort to think about how the people who've been running these businesses for months, years, decades, think about the world. I'm sure everyone's heard statistics like this before. The vast majority of AI projects don't work. The vast majority of AI implementations don't work. Now, e-commerce is slightly different in the sense that it's a younger industry by definition than many of the others that we think about. But still, a lot of e-commerce companies you'll come across struggle to integrate AI broadly defined. We think about it from the perspective of EQ over IQ. Those of you who know my background know that I'm a trained physician. I think a lot about bedside manner. I think a lot about leading with empathy. And even in the, at least at the surface, technologically forward industry of e-commerce, there is a lot to be gained from interfacing deeply with the folks who know that industry well. You heard a few talks just now on how people think about branding, how people think about the customer experience, and we spent a lot of effort thinking about that same thing. So, whoops, that was backwards. So, founded the firm 7 years ago. We really are dedicated to the proposition of rebalancing the playing field between all the companies that have existed on Main Street America, inclusive of e-commerce, and the rest of society. How do we think about that for e-commerce? So let's dive a little bit deeper. These are the steps on the screen you'll see here. So obviously we do a lot of diligence, like everyone in this room might. We use proprietary technologies to identify opportunities for improvement. We work very much with management teams to think about how to execute on those ideas. Once we have a co-written business plan, we integrate into our technology, we grow it, and then, of course, we think about some sort of monetization event, which could be an exit, but could be many, many other methodologies. So I'm going to talk about this, but I also don't want to overemphasize this. This is a proprietary technology that we made over the past 5 to 6 years. It completely scales our ability to integrate new companies. It scales our ability to diligence companies. Basically, what it allows us to do is you point all the databases, all of the accounts that your company, e-commerce business, or any other business, frankly, might have. This technology integrates that. It creates a knowledge graph that represents how that company processes information, and as well as the business logic, as well as the workflows of that particular business. And then we use that not only for opportunity identification, but projection management and then deployment to production, front to back. Now, I would argue that when we made this 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was nothing in the industry like this. I'm going to try to make an argument to you guys that you don't even have to make this today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the open source technologies that exist that we've now used to supplement this, that you guys could download this afternoon and integrate into your businesses. But it's certainly up until now been a differentiator for us. Okay, so using what the previous slide, we've created multiple different modules that we deploy to prod for our various different businesses. So these are just 3 that I'm sure everyone in this room cares about and knows about, and has many different either teams or tech or process that helps manage this. So I don't have to read this to you, but these are the basic parts of the workflow for running an e-commerce business. Couple of major things I want to call out for this audience is a lot of times people get enamored with something that sounds technologically sexy, and they don't religiously, assiduously, and ruthlessly measure performance. We do that from beginning to end. That is a super important thing. That's core to our philosophy. That's why we have any benefit at all. There's so many things one could try, but if you don't measure very assiduously at every step along the way, you'll never know if it makes any difference at all. You heard a little bit about different approaches to that. I think both at a higher level than what I'm talking about now and at a lower level in the past couple of talks. Things about CAC or how much you're spending on advertising or LTV or things like this. Those are both part of this process for us, but not as, we do much more detailed things down to the very, very molecular level of individual choices on for instance, inventory management, ordering this or ordering that, or having this in this warehouse or this, et cetera, by a SKU level or a product category level. And these are all things that we would use to make sure that whatever it is we're doing here technologically makes any sense at all. Okay, so who cares about any of this unless you make money? So these are the three of our e-commerce businesses that we've had over the years. Again, without reading the results to you, except to say every one of these businesses has done extremely well under our ownership. ProSourceFit is an e-commerce fitness equipment company. So think kettlebells, think yoga mats, think benches, and things like flooring, things like this. Transacted with the business going on 5 years ago now, and it's grown materially since our participation. Opportunities to put your brand, that is or was an Acquiror, and the revenue has gone up at 3-fold, EBITDA has gone by 5-fold. Frankly, just running the playbook that has been in the previous 2 slides. Hugolite is an eco-friendly candle company. We actually bolted it on to ProSource, given its they use a similar channel and very Amazon focused. Similarly, there we've seen dramatic growth on the revenue and the profitability side during our ownership. That's the most recent acquisition, so don't have sort of the multi-year track record. It's a little over a year that we've owned the company. But again, once you have this repeatable technological coupled with process flywheel that we've been talking about, you can just do more and more and more without having to put an equal amount of effort on the personnel side. So one of the things I really wanted to talk about here is how you guys could do this afternoon. So anyone in this industry is remiss unless they talk about OpenClaw. Who here has heard about OpenClaw? Oh, good, wonderful. So OpenClaw, in our world has revolutionized sort of at least the awareness of agentic AI in the past 8 weeks. And you could achieve not everything, I think, if I'm going to toot our own horn that we've talked about now, but a good fraction of it using the open source capabilities that exist today. So OpenClaw, for those of you who may not know or maybe have a surface level understanding, is essentially a very, very low barrier to entry way of using an agentic framework. So basically, the people who created it wanted to very much lower the barrier to making agents that do random things, and you can very easily talk to it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, people use this for all sorts of things, by the way. Things inside of e-commerce, outside of e-commerce, things like just answering your email. But it's become, I think, much more interesting inside the e-commerce realm because of the native hooks that it has in a variety of different things. So it can read an incoming invoice, post it to your ERP system, or go to Amazon itself and do something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would highly recommend for those of you who haven't yet tried this to give it a shot and see how you can scale your team. It installs on basically, but I have no affiliation with OpenClaw. I just thought it would be important to mention it here. So don't think I'm going to benefit economically from this, but I think it's just something that's entered the consciousness that's so disruptive to how difficult it used to be to make agents that for any of you who are not aware of it, you should be aware of it. But of course, with great power comes great responsibility, as you comic book fans may know. And big caution on this stuff, and this is a bit of caution that's beyond just OpenClaw. It's any AI capability, whether or not it is something you pay for, something you download, or something you create yourself. There are huge privacy concerns on this. So for those of you who don't know sort of the details about this sort of AI works, it is essentially an autocomplete mechanism which takes text and sort of completes that thought in a very nuanced way. Don't skewer me for those of you who know more deeply than that. This is approximately how it works. And the problem with that is that if people who want to be nefarious can inject what's called prompt injection, which means they can inject something in your emails or in your POs that completely take control of your system. Now, there are ways to control that, but I'd highly recommend that for those of you who want to do this sort of thing, be it OpenClaw or any other type of AI, be it what we talked about today or elsewhere, to spend a good amount of effort thinking about how to manage them. That is a general comment on any technology, by the way, but specifically on these incredibly powerful techniques that many of your competitors and many of your colleagues may have already used to make a good amount of money. The last thing I say at the bottom is confabulations. So confabulations is a term that I think I and Jeff Hinton, but no one else uses. Most people call that hallucinations. Basically what that means is that the artificial intelligence will make a very confident but erroneous assertion about whatever. And that is another thing to be very, very sensitive to in a business context, particularly because if you say, hey, what's my revenue on this SKU? And it says it's something that's 25% wrong, you may make a wrong decision based on that. Now, the technology and the framework that I showed you that we made a few slides ago was specifically designed to make confabulation zero. And we do that by imposing this sort of business logic knowledge graph on top of it. But there's, out of the box, OpenClaw out of the box, for instance, is going to have a weakness there. And any other open source AI would as well. So I'd highly recommend you sort of take the effort to at least have at the beginning, a human in the loop to make sure that that's minimized. But other than that, as I think you heard the previous speakers refer, you'd be, this is not table stakes using this sort of thing. I think you can't really even be competitive without using something along these lines. Okay, so I just popping up a level again. So when you think about the various, whether or not you're an acquirer or you're an operator or you're an outside investor, I strongly recommend sort of taking a bird's eye view at the portfolio at large and using AI at multiple levels of abstraction. First, to sort of manage the whole portfolio. Second, to take a look at individual companies. Third, to look at individual workflows in those companies. And fourth, to look at individual actions within those workflows, et cetera. Obviously, I've been talking a lot about in this talk and elsewhere, if you've heard me speak about leading with empathy. I think a lot of people forget about that. At the end of the day, we are humans selling to humans. And without empathy, all of this is sort of heartless and soulless. And I think it's important to always remember that. And of course, I welcome any conversations now or later. But I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you very much.